invaders.
Well, we're not talking about that. And that was made before this.
How did the United States develop the technology to pull ahead of the Russians in the space race? Many believe that a sophisticated guidance system was salvaged from a crashed UFO. Now, for the first time, a motion picture tells the story of these incredible events. It started with an accident in space. And it led to the crash of a large metallic disc in the Arizona desert. Military authorities immediately sealed off the area.
We think it was a controlled landing.
Give me a pass through to General Morrison.
You mean someone brought it in?
Just lights. No visible sign of life. Not outside.
And that someone is still in there.
Is the government concealing information it considers too startling to reveal?
Well, we're not going to go running around yelling flying saucer.
We don't finish what we started. It's all over for the president.
Keep the lid on Hangar 18.
Why have the facts been kept hidden from the American public? What is it our government doesn't want us to know? This new motion picture reveals the startling proof that the government actually has the wreckage of a flying saucer and the bodies of alien astronauts. You'll learn the incredible story of the most startling government cover-up ever conceived. See the story of the UFO cover-up, Hangar 18.
Hello and welcome to another episode of It Could Have Been a Classic. Please subscribe. I would be so grateful if you would. Please give it a share and leave comments. I love to read what you put and I like talking to you all. So this week we're going to be covering Hangar 18, a film made in 1980. It cost a few $1 million to make. And it took $11 million at the box office, and it's rated as being utterly rubbish. But we're not here about what Rotten Tomatoes said. This is Could It Have Been a Classic, right? So let's go into this. So we've got Kolchak the Night Stalker. We've got Napoleon Solo and her out of Dynasty, Pamela Bellwood, and the whole team. They all look like scientists, but they've all been in these like afternoon movies on Channel 5 or ITV. Remember the old afternoon movies? So up in space, we have a shuttle with an orbiter satellite launch to put it in orbit. And they pick up something on the radar. There's like this dot moving about. I mean, it's the worst radar effects I've seen. But here we go. So the astronaut's outside. He's controlling the arm to get the satellite on it, and he's looking up and he's going, have you seen what's up there? There's a UFO, flying saucer, right? So it's up there. They're all like looking up like that, and NASA are picking it up down on the ground at the Cape, right? So the satellite launches, it ends up exploding. It launches into UFO, bang, big explosion. Next minute, the astronaut was in the loading bay. His body's floating in the middle of the window with his head separate. You know, his head in helmet floating around. So the general down at NASA, he phones up NORAD and then the White House. The flying saucer has come down in an automated landing in the desert, right? And when it lands, obviously you've got the redneck town waster in the pickup truck, sees it. He goes off and gets the sheriff. Now he sees it at 2 o'clock in the morning, and he don't turn up till about 6 o'clock with sheriff. So I don't know what was going on in all that time. So the two astronauts get back to Earth. They tell Harry, the Night Stalker, look, we saw it. It's up there. It's on the radar footage. And he says, everything's going to be all right. So meanwhile, we jump to the White House. So we've got Robert Vaughn, Napoleon Solo, who's been promoted from man from uncle to White House Chief of Staff. Not really, right? So he's playing this like Chief of Staff. And he gets told, the president, like, we've had a UFO alien spaceship land. And the general's there going, well, we're going to have to tell the public this is the biggest thing that's ever happened in human race. And so Robert Vaughan sat there going, well, there's 2 weeks till next election, and this guy's been a good president. We're going to have to cover this up. So the poor 2 astronauts get blamed for the other astronauts' death. They get Harry from NASA, the Kolchak Night Stalker, Darren McGavin, and he leads the team at this special hangar that's designed. It's got contamination suites and labs and sleeping quarters. It's self-contained. It's a lunar training station or something, and it happens to be out of the way. Like it's an abandoned Air Force base. Guess what? Hangar 18. So he gets this team and he goes there, and they're totally cut off from the outside world. And they're trying to get inside UFO. Like they're all just amazed by this spaceship. Meanwhile, back at the White House, right, they're doing very well in the polls. Well, it's neck and neck, and it's all he says. In 2 weeks' time, we'll tell the world we've got a spaceship, right? Now I'm going to unravel this film by pulling one of the threads out, but not just yet. So the 2 astronauts can't find the evidence of the radar telemetry. It's been erased or taken. So they go off to this other place, Crystal Mountain. It's another telemetry station for radar. And they meet they've got a mate there. And he says, look, I can't give you a copy of it. I'll lose my job. But one of the astronauts, Bancroft or whatever, says, can you tell us where it came down? He said, oh, yeah, I can tell you where it landed. So they're driving off. Meanwhile, back at the White House, right, with Robert Vaughan, head at CIA's there, he says to him, we can't let them find out, because if they find out, it could blow the president's election. So they put the CIA onto him, and that's it. So meanwhile, we get back to Hangar 18, right? And Darren McGavin's there, Team Harry, and they've got all these like TV actors that look like scientists, and they're all prodding around outside of it. They think there's something in there, and they press a button, the door opens. So they go inside the UFO. They go and they're absolutely amazed. I've got to give it that. The set was quite impressive actually for the spaceship, and it's like 2 stories. It's not massive. It's biggish, you know. So they get in this like elevator thing, and it takes them up to the bridge, and these 2 chairs spin round, and it is a scene where you do jump out your chair. Even I jumped last night because I forgot about it, where there's 2 dead aliens stood there, and they look like us, but with bald head and weird big blue eyes. So they're dead, and they take the bodies out, and there's a load of messing about, scientists pressing buttons, and they've got this linguist dude. He's like the best in the world, and he starts putting the alien language together because the symbols are like these, and oh, you're not going to believe this. Well, what this film tries to do is it tries to connect every single mystery in the world, right, together with a conspiracy, right? But there's this thread that undoes it all, right? So what they figured out is that they're like us, and the guy sort of like undoes the language and figures it out like a Rosetta Stone, and they realize that this is the big reveal that we come from them, that we were created well, they came here, started doing it with, I don't know, pre-human species, and created us, and we were like this slave race that worshipped them as gods, right? And that comes out. It's like a big revelation in film. They're all like astounded, and they're just like us. They're quite similar, just obviously more advanced. And then they get on the more it's shot. And anyway, they let off a laser beam. Then his weapon system kicks on, and it blows some up. So that's one button they won't be touching again. And they get into database, and suddenly they're watching video footage of like human cities, military installations, power stations, all these like infrastructures, really important, naval bases, air force, military. And they have a meeting, and they come to the conclusion that they're coming back, and that they work out the ship is not capable of warp speed. It goes very fast. It's powered by cold fusion. but there's a bigger ship out there. They reckon there's a mothership out there, so that must be immense. Somewhere it's out there. And this is like, it's been monitoring us. So they've been monitoring us for quite a while. Then they find this woman in a tube. They kidnapped her, ready to, I'm not even going there on that. Anyway, the probes, you know. So that she wakes up screaming in an ambulance because they've been beaming up human beings, right? And taking them to have the wicked way with it. It's amazing how it's a super good looking woman in it. So the two alien bodies, they're like us, and it all comes out that they're coming back. So I assume it's going to be an invasion. Meanwhile, back at the White House, with the CIA tracking down the two astronauts, trying to figure out, because they've been set up, but only for a fortnight. Some people get killed, and one of the astronauts gets killed, and the other one gets to Hangar 18 because they figured out where it is. And he gets there and he sees Harry, and he says to Harry, he said, look, you know, we've lost one, my mate, he's your friend, he's been killed because you covered. He said, I had nothing to do with this. I didn't know. So he phones up the general and says, have you've killed one of my friends in your stupid conspiracy covering all this up. I'm going to get the press out here. And I'm going to reveal what we've got in this like hangar. So, oh God, this is where, I mean, the greatest moment in human history, right? The greatest moment. They've got a UFO, right? And what does the White House come out with? Chief of Staff. They're all like, oh, well, because there's all this been this big disasters of people dying and chasing and all this, which really none of this were needed, right? So he said, it's like the general says, look, you know, if we get found out, we're going to go to prison because we covered this up and we've lied to Congress and there'll be committees and we'll all be finished. And one of them says, well, it'd be good if we could just get rid of problems. So then they decide, right, I mean, this the greatest discovery for anything in the world is an extraterrestrial craft which could advance us 300-400 years technologically. What do they decide to do? Fill up a remote-controlled Learjet and blow it up. And then the president could win the election. Everything's kept quiet and life goes on. But oh no, there's a bloody invasion happening in outer space. They're coming back, right? So they're all in a meeting in Hangar 18 in ship, right? And they're all sat there. There's a phone call made, an Air Force are guarding it. And this phone call says, please remove your men. So all the soldiers go off. And there's this remote-controlled Learjet crashing down. So they're all in UFO, and this jet hits the hangar. It kills everybody in there, but there's about 6 or 7 staff inside the UFO. And big explosion. It's quite impressive. And what's left is the UFO, and they've all survived. And it just finishes at the end, right? That the media's found out about it, and there's a press conference because when they were inside the spaceship, it doesn't bother it. It's indestructible. You know, the metal it's made of protected them. And that's it. Now, what unravels this movie to me? I mean, you've got all the running about everywhere, the action scenes and the road chases and the government conspiracy. Now, look, if this has happened, they are not going to tell us. And do you think they're going to go crash a plane on it? And do you think they're going to give a shit about an election? Having something like that where technology could be just advanced overnight. That one moment, that one thing in this film unravels the whole of Hangar 18. And not only that, this did get released at the cinema. Now, I remember this being advertised at the cinema. And what we're interested about, I never saw it at the cinema. I saw it when we got our first video. My parents bought a video record. That's when I rented it for the first time. And there is a scene that even last night, I said earlier on that I did jump out of my chair. When they're going up in elevator, the two aliens turn around in the swivel chairs. And even last night, that you do jump at that scene because you're not expecting it. It's one of them scenes they put in movies. No matter how prepared you're ready for it, it gets you all the time. So basically, it's like all they cared about is winning next election. Yet they've got this thing, a flying saucer, And even military, you think the general would be going like, well, no, this could advance us against other countries. We could just jump light years ahead of everybody else. But all they cared about is putting president back in power. But meanwhile, in the UFO, when the hangar gets destroyed, they've got an entire booklet of the alien language and the plans of when they're coming back and when they're invading. But luckily, at the end, it gets revealed. Now, that is Hangar 18, right? It tries to be a lot of things, and some of it does work. I like the connection with the human, like the prehistoric humans, and we came out of it and all that. I mean, it was challenging, like where we came from, the missing link, which I sort of quite liked all that. I thought was quite good. And the aliens weren't that much different to us. They were just more advanced. And the whole thing of the invasion as well, which was coming. But and I thought the conspiracy thing, I know to use an election to go to these levels just to get rid of it, and then we all carry on with our lives as normal. It just undoes the film totally. It completely undoes it, which I found last night, I found quite annoying. Do you know what I mean? Can you imagine if this was an episode of The X-Files? Now, I can understand, I think some X-Files obviously came from this, and the film, it does touch on a lot of science fiction elements and a lot of conspiracy stuff, but they went about it wrong way with conspiracy. Now, you're going to ask me, could Hangar 18 have been a classic? The question is, could they have been a sequel? Well, I think if they got rid of that sort of the White House conspiracy, I think this film might have done quite well. I really do. I think if they'd gone about in a much focus more on the alien intent and when they were coming and all freaking out at White House that there's this invasion coming in the next couple of years and finding out what the aliens are and finding out so much more about them. I mean, some impressive computer effects on the monitors in there, which I'll give them that. There is little highlights in this film that make it quite good. But could Hangar 18 being a classic? No. It's there. The potential's there because I think, basically, to me, this was like a pilot episode for a TV series. Now, if this had been a pilot episode for a television series, I think you would have been onto something. I really do. Because I think the outlying story sort of works quite well until you get into the politics of it, like with the White House conspiracy, and that it just this film shoots itself in its own feet, and it could have been so much more if they'd just gone about. I mean, they got it right with the redneck out in the desert seeing the UFO, nobody believes him. The two astronauts trying to find out. I sort of get why they were being set up. But I think the astronauts would have been brought in on this. I don't think they'd have kept him out. And they were just adding that for a car chase and some shooting, and they survive, and one of them dies, and one of them gets there, and all that. Do you know what I mean? And it just doesn't work. I think that if they'd have gone with the alien ship, and probably one of the aliens alive, I think if it had been a bit altered, Hangar 18 could have been quite good. Because I mean, there's been a load of sci-fi rip-offs from this film, hasn't there? Yeah, Hangar 1 and Hangar 5. Oh God, have you seen Hangar 5? And all this, and Area 51. And they were trying to touch upon all this. And I'd say 50% of this movie works. No, all right, 70% of it works. You know what I mean? I mean, the acting's great. I mean, you've got, Robert Vaughn, Darren McGavin. Oh, I'm such a fan of Darren McGavin. And the other two actors, the astronaut, they were just in loads of TV programs. But you know who they are. So Hangar 18, could it have been a classic? No. I'm going to have to give this one a big downer. No. Now, if you want to watch this, it's actually on HD on YouTube. So that makes it interesting. So you can watch this. And I would like to hear your thoughts on what you think of Hangar 18. I don't know, maybe if Hangar 18 had been done in 90s, like with the offset of the X-Files and stuff, like the beginning of it, I think they might have had a hit on their hand. But to me, this could have been a pilot episode. Every time I watched it, I don't see this as a cinema film. It's a TV pilot episode for a failed TV series, which shot itself in the foot before it even got off the ground. So that's my review of Hangar 18, absolutely terrible. I'd say the story's about 70% right, but the film's just bloody awful. Because it just, you know, it doesn't work. The conspiracy thing is useless in the film, but the whole alien thing and the Hangar 18 all works, you know what I mean? Maybe there might have been better to have a witness who were trying to get to, who saw the ship and he were looking for his partner, you know, because they find this woman and she happens to be super good looking, screaming at her, you know, when she wakes up in an ambulance because they're obviously going to have their evil way with her up on Mothership, you know. But it might have worked with somebody like a member at Public trying to go from it that way. But to cover that up over a political election is just ridiculous. You know what I mean? And they wouldn't have revealed it to the public anyway. They've all been kept quiet because then the Russians would have been knocking on the door, the Germans and the English. Everybody would have wanted a look at the spaceship, you know, because it affects everybody. I mean, this is like this momentous moment. You know, we finally get one. And then what do they care about? Having the election, you know, and the president's, you know, PA and his publicity. I mean, they're just ridiculous. So, Hangar 18, check it out, guys, and I will see you on the next episode. But again, not a classic. So, I will see you soon. Stay safe, guys. I will see you on Sunday at 5 o'clock. And let me know your thoughts on this film.